All right, let's get into the topic I want to cover this week. This one came in via email, and this came from Mark Tater. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Mark says, "Hey guys, may I suggest a topic for future episodes? Tips, tip jars, etc. When is it appropriate? How much do we push it or mention it without sounding like cheap salesmen, etc.? The thought came to me during a gig yesterday, and it dawned on me that we're asking for suggesting tips at a venue, in this case a bar, who are there for the same money, but we're already getting paid a set amount. If you've covered this already, my apologies. I didn't find an episode about this specifically. Thank you for creating such a great podcast." So thanks for reaching out, Mark. And we have definitely covered this in passing on a couple of episodes over the years, but I figured it was worth revisiting. Now, let's talk about the two different scenarios that you would be contemplating this tip question. And that would be public gigs versus private gigs. So let's talk about public gigs, bars, nightclubs, performance venues, that kind of thing. It is pretty common for bands to put out tip jars at those kinds of gigs. It's almost expected at this point. And so I don't think it's weird to do that and mention it on stage, but I understand the feeling of, well, other people are working at this venue that aren't getting paid what we're getting paid. Is it cool to draw attention to it? And I think the answer is yes. And I think this is a mindset thing. I think we should come at all of this from a place of abundance and that there's enough money for everybody to go around. And so I would say don't feel weird about mentioning it. I would say I think a solid number would be no more than 3 times per set. But if you feel kind of weird about it, I would say draw attention to it while also spreading the goodwill around to the other folks that work there. So say, hey, we've got a tip jar up here if you are enjoying yourself. Also be sure to tip Stacy, who's back there working hard for you at the bar. So kind of make it an opportunity to draw attention to the other folks that are working while also drawing attention to your tip jar. And if you want to garner some goodwill and you have a good night as far as tips go, tip out the wait staff. There have been a number of gigs where we had a really good night and we made good tips, and the bartenders also took good care of us, so we tipped them out. It's important that you show your appreciation for those people, and we've said it multiple times on other episodes that particular goodwill can manifest itself down the road because people move venues, they get promotions, and maybe the bartender that you tip one week is the manager at the other venue the next week. So always be willing to share the good stuff with the people around you, and it should hopefully pay off for you. Now, the other category of gigs would be private gigs. Now, this would be like birthday parties, maybe not at like a general corporate event, but there's a particular loophole that I'll get to in a second. The way that we've always approached tip jars at private events is it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. We pretty much always put a tip jar out. The way that I have always kind of looked at it is if we put one out and then the client has an issue with it, we'll put it away. And anecdotally, I have never had a client ask us to put the tip jar away. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as other people may think it is or we think it is, because I think it's just a general accepted thing, at least in the States. I know that might be different wherever it is that you're from, but I don't see a problem with it. Put it out. You don't necessarily have to draw attention to it. Maybe you can. Maybe at a private event, you don't draw attention to it. You just leave it there. And, you know, the way that we kind of look at it is the client paid for your services, but a part of your service is entertaining their guests. And so putting a tip jar out gives those people, their guests, an opportunity to show their appreciation. So I 100% believe that not putting a tip jar out is leaving money on the table. And also you're robbing the guests of that event the opportunity to show their direct appreciation to you. So looping back around to what I was talking about as far as a loophole in corporate events, So maybe you have signage that has QR codes on it, and maybe that QR code links to a particular page on your website that allows you to accept PayPal or Venmo. I don't see a problem with that at all. I would say there's enough hoops to jump through for somebody to pay you that way that it's not overt or inappropriate to have something like that up at a corporate gig. But like all things, your mileage may vary. We've definitely done corporate events where the show ended and I check our inbox and we got 5 t-shirt purchases and maybe $20-30 in our Venmo account. Because people are there, they're having a good time. Why not give them an opportunity to find out more about you and maybe throw a couple of bucks your way? And that's pretty much it. Hopefully, Mark, there's some stuff in there that works for you and your band so that the next time you guys have a gig, you have the confidence to put your tip jar out and pitch it appropriately. But like I said, I say spread the good word around, make sure that everybody wins, and you should be good to go.